under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, first order of business is the approval of last month's minutes. Are there any corrections, adjustments, errors that need to be?
I move we approve the council meeting minutes of January 21st, 2025.
Second.
There's been a first and second to approve the council meeting minutes from January 21st, 2025. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Council retreat minutes.
I move we approve the council retreat minutes of February 1st, 2025.
Second.
There's been a first and second to approve the council retreat minutes from February 1st, 2025. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, at this time, I'm going to open up for any public comments for non-agenda items. You'll be limited to 2 minutes on any topic. Going once. All right, public comments are closed. Committee and staff reports. First up is Parks Board.
Did not meet.
Did not meet. Redevelopment Commission. You were there, I was not. Ryan handled it.
Yeah, Redevelopment Commission went through a few different items, namely discussion about the acquisition of a few properties in town, and also financial services contracts with Bondry, and BME, Bose McKinney Evans.
Okay. Next up is, we're going to have two presentations from the Vernon Township Fire Territory. First will be up is Flory May, Township Trustee and President of the Vernon Township Fire Board.
Thank you so much, and pleasure to be back in front of the McCordsville Town Council. And Ryan, thank you so much. I have put packets in front of everyone, and we will go through this fairly quickly in terms of the township. Each year, we come in front of you with a quick review on the 2024 year in review, and a little analysis in terms of what has happened with the township. Next slide, thank you. The township covers 4 key areas. We focus on being the provider unit for fire and EMS, township assistance, which I'm going to spend most of my time on, a number of community engagement projects, and our 4 historic cemeteries. Next slide. On township assistance, I wanted to talk primarily about this area because we are seeing a rise in the number of township assistance requests that we are getting. And we are seeing a rise because we are seeing requests from the apartments and from the senior living facilities, and I don't think that's any surprise. We are not seeing a dramatic increase in terms of the amount of money that we are giving out, however. We gave out $59,000 this year. It's within about $10,000 to $15,000 that we gave out last year. That was about 80 family units that were assisted. We got 167 total requests, and what I want to emphasize is what we get requests for. We get requests for housing, we get requests for utilities, we get requests for medicine, for cremation, and for food. And on your website, there are links so that citizens can find us. We also work with the schools, we work with the nonprofits, we are listed in terms of county aid, we are listed many, many places. And I want to make sure that everyone knows how to find us, because in the past few weeks, we had some issues where people did not know where to find us, and we want to make sure that that is never a problem. People come to us often when they are at the point of eviction or where they have a utility disconnect. Our biggest concern is if there are children in the house. We do not ever want to see children on the street. or living in cars, and we do not ever want to see them living without heat or in unsafe conditions. And so we know, and the town has been very helpful in terms of sending people to us when it has been appropriate, but we want to make sure that all of our elected officials are aware of how this process works. On our website, there are links to the applications and there are links to our guidelines. Again, we just want to make sure that all elected officials are aware of where these exist, where they live. They're also available in paper on the front of our building, so people can go at any point and go and get those, online or in paper. They are not easy to fill out. We do not create them. They come from the state. The guidelines come from the state. I would love to change them. But I just want everybody to be aware that those exist. Jenny Krieger, whose picture is on the front of the document, in case you have never seen her, this woman is a saint. She walks through the applications one by one. She helps people fill them out. Many of the people who come to us, they are not technically savvy. Many of the people have trouble identifying where the documents are that they need. She helps them. It often takes days to get them completed and to get everything verified. So I just want you to know where these things live, and if you ever have somebody who is in dire need, please bring them to us. So just want to make sure there's never any question on that. We also work very, very closely with the nonprofits in our county. I won't go through this in great detail in terms of what they each do, but I do want to mention in particular Healthy 365, which has become the Connection Center, and what an incredible resource that organization has become. For addiction referral, which, as you can imagine, is the vast majority of the issues that we're seeing come back to addiction problems. And so that has been a very, very valuable resource for us. So we work with all of the others, and we are attempting to work on getting some bridge programs in Vernon Township as our population grows, so that we don't have to send people to Greenfield every single time, that we start to see programs where there are offerings here in the township on a more regular basis. They always come and ask me for money, and my question is always, what are you doing here? How do we get programs here? So that's my synopsis. Do you have any questions on our township assistance program?
Do you happen to have data, not necessarily numbers, but maybe percentages of where your assistance is going in terms of McCordsville versus Fortville?
Actually, that's a great question. When I first came into office in 2019, it was almost completely Fortville. I will tell you that it has now flipped, and it is now about 65% McCordsville.
Really?
And it is the apartments. We are now starting to see a shift. I will also tell you we have started working with the apartment managers, and here just recently had some calls with some of the apartment managers because we were seeing very high numbers of requests when they had, from people who had just recently moved in. People who've only been living there for 5 or 6 months and very quickly cannot afford to live there. So the question is what is happening in the application process? And
Right.
Managers are working with us. I will tell you that they've all been very, very good to work with and have been very forthcoming. So it's going to be a process. We recognize that, and we're working on that. On the next slide, many of you may be familiar with Farm. We have multiple food pantries. Farm is our program in Vernon Township that has a fresh food gleaner certified program. We have started contracting with them because they are the one that has large capacity. They work with over 500 families every month. They formerly were providing for families outside of Vernon Township. They have now reduced their services and are focusing solely on Vernon Township. They will not turn families away, but it is on a one-time basis, and they do track by driver's license, et cetera, et cetera. So, just so that you're aware. We have, as many of you know, at Vernon Township, a community garden program. It this year will grow to 60 plots. It is open for anyone in Vernon Township to garden there, and the produce, fresh produce, is then taken to the to farm to be given to families. And we've also run a junior gardener program there and a bunch of education programs there. So just so everybody's aware. On the other side of the sheet and on the next slide, I do want to point out that what you probably never hear about, but Stacy Nielsen in our office. Stacy does pretty much everything. She handles payroll reporting. She manages much of our contracts, audits, works with legal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She was recently certified on the human resources side. Very, very talented, and we're very, very fortunate to have her on our team. So, as you just look at everything she supports, including the 4 historic cemeteries, two of which are here in McCordsville, one on Railroad Street, and the McCordsville Cemetery, which you drive past on 600. So, I know that many times the township is a side issue as we look at fire and EMS, but we always want to make sure everyone's aware. And again, if you ever have anyone who is in dire need, that you know where to turn people to. We can go to the next slide. Just so you know, we have had private donations made, and we do have donation funds set up. We have requests that come to us that we cannot support because of government restrictions. However, there are situations where we feel that we do want to step in to assist people, and we have been able to do that through the private donations. We take those in front of our board, we discuss them first, but we do maintain the privacy of the people who are requesting. And then many of you are familiar with the CASA Kids Care Bag program that we have supported every year in conjunction with the fire department. Next. Okay, in front of you, you won't see we don't do printed pieces very often. But I think, Greg, you were the one who said 5 years is a big deal.
It is a big deal. So I think, I mean, I will admit, I've been part of all 5 years in it, and I don't think people really understand. We're celebrating our 5-year anniversary of the forming of the Vernon Township Fire Territory and the interlocal agreement between Vernon Township, McCordsville, and Fortville, and all kudos to Flory and Chief Elder. I mean, they're the ones spearheading this, but we've come a long way in 5 years from a public safety standpoint. I don't think a lot of people realize from where we started at and where we're at today in terms of what a great improvement in public safety, especially on the fire and EMS side we've done. So a lot of things to cover. I know Flory and Chief will cover it, so why don't you guys go through your presentation.
If you want to flip to the inside, and Ryan, if you want to slip 2 slides forward. The front, we put it in words. On the inside, we put it in pictures. So we'll go straight to the USA Today version. On the inside, and the chief is really going to hit 2024, as we look at the dynamics, and I'll be blunt. The other big reason for laying this out, as we look at what's happening with discussions in the legislature, we know how important it is to have local control of public safety and to make sure that we are providing great services here locally. We went in 2019, we had 2 volunteer departments. We went to, we're not really sure, it was more than 100 part-time firefighters as we worked to figure out how we were going to sustain the career firefighters. And it was an absolute team effort. Without the towns coming together, without forming the fire territory, we could have never accomplished all of the things we have accomplished together. And it takes all of us, and all of us working together. I know I've Ryan, Tim, you know, your whole team here, without helping to find the land, without figuring out the second station, you know, so many of the things that came through on this end, it was because everybody worked together. And I remember when we laid out the slide deck and we made a whole bunch of promises in terms of what we were going to accomplish. And what we promised was, Dr. Burney, what did we promise? We were going to move from 30-year-old equipment to modern equipment, and we did. We promised that we were going to build a full-time station here in McCordsville, and we did. And we promised that we would go to a career department, and we did. And I cannot say enough about Chief Elder. Chief Elder hates it when we talk about him. He will never, ever say anything about all the things that he does, but I give him incredible credit and the team that he put together to make this happen, because it took a lot of people to make this happen. But getting that ISO rating to 3 and getting our insurance rating so that it's going to positively impact our insurance rates, that's a huge deal. And you'd love to say it's just, you just put the pieces in place and you get the rating, but that's not how it works. You've got to do the paperwork. You've got to commit to showing that you're doing all those training hours, and it's a huge effort to get that paperwork in place. And so I thank them for making that happen, because we will all appreciate that when we go to pay our insurance bills. So I think that takes us to the next slide. Oh, thanks, Tim. And the last slide is, we don't really talk very often about the grants. Over the past 5 years, we have gotten more than $300,000 in grants, ranging from FEMA to more than $150,000 that we got from the Fortville Volunteer Fire. So a wide range of support. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
And
Lori.
now for the real guy.
Yeah, Chief Elder.
Well, good evening. As Tim switches over at you, quick, good job. I am going to present the information tonight about the year 2024. Some of my slides will also cover previous year's data in comparison to 2024, and I think it'll be, your eyes are probably already open, but I think they'll be opened even wider when I show you some of the data. Tim, if you could go. And as Lori said, I am very proud to announce that we, effective April, we will go to a 3x. 3 in the hydrogen areas pretty much, and then the 3X is just a designation of the non-hydrogen areas. This is a new classification, the way that they do it through ISO. And how do we get those ratings? The top two, the emergency communications, our county 911 center, they have a rating, and then our water supply, which is based off Citizens Energy for McCordsville, and the town of Fortville provides their own water, so they're part of this factor. But a big portion of it is the fire department, and those are the subcategories that they look at is our apparatus, the age of it. We've replaced them, thank you. Station locations, personnel, training, operations, our operating procedures, and our community risk reduction efforts, which includes fire prevention, public education. Tim, if you could go to the next slide. So 2024, we had 24 personnel on shift for 3 shifts, so that's 9 people per shift. We have 6 in administration, 5 reserve firefighters, and my goal for this year is to try to build that program up a little bit. And then 18 fire corps members who are volunteers still, but they're not in a capacity of where they're doing operational type work. They still want to give something back to the community. They're the ones that drive the big technical support truck and provide rehab services for firefighters, not only in Vernon Township, but throughout the county. Everybody's calling them now. And as you can see by the graph, I just want to throw up the majority of our personnel are on shift. So if you could, next slide. How did we get there? So back starting in 2019, we hired our first career person. That was actually Flory hired our first career person. That was Chief Kylie Culberson to head up our EMS division. 2020 we didn't. 2021 is when we brought on our first group of career people to both support the administration and operations, which was 9. We added 6 the following year, 9 and on shift in 2023 with 2 more admin, and then 6 in 2024. I will say that in this year we did hire 3 more for 2025, so that number brings us up to 36. That other 3, as was approved in the budget, gives us our battalion chiefs. Next slide. And if you have any questions at any point in time of this, please stop me. This is the training. Oh, I'm sorry.
You mentioned the ISO rating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to emphasize that it's like golf, that the lower score is better.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
People see the number decrease and they wonder.
Yeah.
The other question is, do you have any information on how much that affects homeowners insurance costs, since homeowners insurance is basically a fire protection policy? And if your ISO rating improves, that usually translates to a decreased rating. But every homeowner has to contact their own insurance company to see what that would be. But on the average, if you decrease an ISO rating 1 point, what's the average decrease in cost for homeowners insurance?
Okay, let me answer the first question first. So
If
yes,
you know.
ISO is on scaled 1 being the best to 10 being there's pretty much no fire protection at all. And as Dr. Burney said, the lower the score in this case is the best option. We did get a report back, and we found out where we can get more points, and we will be working on that over the next 3 to 4 years, because that's how often ISO usually comes out to evaluate your community. And we will be building the department based around that plan, a part of that. As far as how much you will save, from what I've been told, it depends on your insurance company. Some may offer this amount and others may offer nothing or may offer more. So again, it depends on your insurance company. The thing I would like to stress the most is contact your insurance company. Let them know that our ratings changed. We do have a letter available on our website written by me that just says our ISO is now this, effective this date, and if they need that document, we've had a couple people already reach out for that. They can submit that to their insurance company. Training hours is the next thing that ISO looks at, and if you have it in front of you on the sheet packets that I handed, you have the slide presentation there. But as you can see, back in 2022, we had just 7,400 hours of training. The following year, we went up by a whopping 3 hours, but then last year, we really jumped 2,200 hours of training. And those are broken down into different categories. We provide training for our drivers that are driving that $1 million piece of equipment. We provide leadership training. We provide training for our companies operating together, hazardous materials, EMS, fire prevention. Facilities training is, it's not working at, it's working at a training facility. So we did last year sign an MOU with Greenfield Fire Department. They do have a training facility. They're off New Road, and we do rotate our crews down there so that they can get into actually live fire. They have some burn chambers there that we can put our people in live fire scenarios. So if you're ever interested, they do a fire ops, they call it Fire Ops 101, and you guys can get in that environment if you would like. So.
Leave it to the professionals.
Next slide, please. So this is our community risk reduction efforts. 2022 is when we were really starting to get our fire prevention program underway. Prior to that, there was some done here and there throughout both communities, Fortville, McCordsville, and the unincorporated areas. We brought Fire Marshal Josh Earl on board. And as you can see, our number of inspections the first 2 years, they were a little lower. He was getting through those first inspections. There was a little bit more detail to iron out. They weren't used to having people come in and inspect their business. In 2024, it's really taken off. And plus, we had a reserve member who he retired from the fire service, who has a background in code enforcement, who also helps Josh out. So we've more than doubled our fire inspections for the year of 2024. Plan reviews for new construction, commercial, and then we look at streets and residential neighborhoods just to make sure our apparatus can safely, yes.
We're looking at revising, redoing, modernizing our zoning and building codes. Do you have an opinion on whether or not arc fault circuit interrupters should be required while you're talking about safety?
I believe that is in the national code or in the state code anyway, so.
Do we require them now, electrical? Or will we?
We require whatever the state building code requires us to require. And that's the limit to what we can require. That's the important piece of that, is we cannot require things above and beyond
Correct.
state building code.
Isn't electrical local and plumbing is state level with
No.
gas? Or has electrical got state code?
There's a state electrical code, there's a state building code, there's a state fire code, there's a state swimming pool code, there's a state elevator, there's all kinds of state.
Learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, and Ryan is correct. You cannot require more than what we've always been told. You can require more, but it can't conflict with the code. And then anytime you try to require more, they say it's a conflict with the code. So, PR events, again, they've almost doubled in the last 2 years, but not quite. As we get our name out more and more as Vernon Township Fire Department, we are getting more requests for participation, and you guys have done a great job with your community events, so that has actually helped add to that number. And then fire investigations, they are low, and I hope they stay low. Those are the complex investigations that are a little bit more than what the company officer may be able to, his or her skill set. Next slide. So this is the last 5 years of run data. And if you can look, back in 2020, we did 1,319 runs. It jumped by 300 runs in 2021. Here's something really, we had a small jump from 21 to 22, but keep in mind, in 2022, we stopped covering Green Township of Madison County. So giving up an entire township of coverage area, our runs still increased. And last year, they went to 1681, and then we had a 7% increase, 1,807 calls in 2024. And I will tell you, and they'll be more impactful on the slide coming up, but we've already done 181 runs in January, which is a record high for us. So, next slide. This is the breakdown. Can you go back one slide? I'm sorry. Yeah. I wanted to point out the majority of our calls are EMS, about 70%, and that's what that next slide shows. If you could go forward.
Hey, Chief, just sorry. What's good intent?
Somebody calls in, they thought they saw smoke, but it was steam. They thought they saw somebody on the side of the road having an emergency, but it wasn't. They were just on their cell phone. Somebody called it in for a reason, but when we got there, it wasn't what it was. Good question. Okay, next slide. I thought it would be interesting this year to include, these by far are not all the complaints that we respond to on EMS, but these are the top ones. By far, our biggest chief complaint on an EMS call is somebody that's been injured. No complaint, I want to point out, is we get called out for a car crash, nobody's injured, there's no report, there's no patient, or we get called out, it could be, they could classify it differently, somebody was on the side of the road they thought was having a medical issue, but it wasn't. So, and then it breaks down into complaints of pain all the way down to altered mental status. But by far, this is not the entire list. There is a huge list. I didn't want to try to crowd it all in. Next slide. Where are our runs occurring? Well, northwest, southwest, and north central. So here, here, in here is where the majority of our runs are occurring at. And it's been like that pretty consistently over the last couple of years. Even so much that for next year, you will see a different slide breakdown. We have broken those larger areas into sub areas so that I can pinpoint even more where the calls are occurring at. Next slide. This is our turnout time for the last 3 years and travel time. I'll point out our time has gone up a little bit from 2023 to 2024, and two reasons I believe. Number one is road construction. Number two is the number of simultaneous calls that we get, and I'll show you that slide here shortly. Next slide.
Just to reiterate, the road construction was due to Fortville, not to McCordsville.
Everywhere.
Okay, I just want to make the point
Actually, it wasn't even Fort, it was the state.
Yeah, state of Indiana, not the town of Fortville, state of Indiana.
One comment there on the response times. We're trying to do our part, and we purchased a TrainFo system, which will feed directly, eventually, into the county EMS system. And when this was installed in New Haven, Indiana, which does have more trains than we do, EMS saw their response times decrease by 67%. I'm not saying that'll happen here, but there will be some effect. And I just want to make sure you're aware of it, so when you hear of it, you know what it is and what it can do for you.
I did Councilman Brewer did bring it up at one of our last several meetings that system was going to be in place. So yes, we appreciate that. I think the other thing that has helped us out with response times, and thanks again to the McCordsville, you guys, is the installation of the traffic preemption devices in all the intersections. And it does allow us to turn out light when we are running emergent. We do have the ability to change those lights to green for us and stop at red for everybody else, and that does help out. So these are our top areas of where we are responding to. 70% of our calls are in residential areas, whether it's an actual single-family home, an apartment, or a residential roadway. That is where the majority of our calls are occurring at. From this 962, and these three-digit numbers are codes that are in the National Incident Management System, reporting system. But you can see it's 1 and 2 family dwellings, multi-family dwellings, the apartments, our nursing home, 107 calls, and that does not include. I know that number may seem low, but that doesn't include the town or the homes around the main building at Traditions. So that number is probably higher, but they would be classified under our reporting system as 1 and 2 family. Next slide. We just started tracking this. So over 20% of our calls occur while we're out on the initial call. 330 times last year, we were on one call and got dispatched on a second before we were done with that first call. 29 times we were out on 2 calls and got sent on a third before we were done with the first 2. 5 times we had 4 runs at the same time, and there was one time, and it was during a storm, we were out on 5 separate calls, which I think is impacting our response time, because what's happening is we're on one end of the township and we get a run in the other end of the township, so they're marking in service real quick, so we're not bringing in mutual aid because it's still quicker for us to respond to it, but it's impacting our travel time. So next slide. This is our incidents per month, and it's pretty consistent across the board. For the most part, we're in the 148 to 166. Our slowest month is December. Our busiest 2 months are equal with July and September. Last year it was September by itself. For some reason July popped up, it spiked this year. Don't know why, but our slowest month last year, ironically, was February, and it jumped way up. So, next slide. Day of week, Friday. Last year it was Tuesday and Friday. I'm sorry, Tuesday and Friday. This year it's Friday by itself, with Monday being a close second. Again, I don't know why yet. Saturday and Sunday was our slowest days of the week in 2023. Saturday jumped up in 2024 for whatever reason. And we'll track that over the next couple of years, see if we can find a pattern. It could just be, don't know. Next slide. Incidents by hour of the day. This number has increased. So our overnight calls used to be pretty slim. They are increasing. This is throughout the year. But by far, it really starts at about 7 a.m. and it doesn't stop until about midnight. On our busiest time of the day is between rush hour traffic, between 5 and 6 p.m. I don't believe it's due to car crashes either, but those are our busiest times of the day. Next slide. Some of our accomplishments last year, we had 2 people that successfully completed paramedic school, adding to our ranks of paramedics. We had 5 people complete the advanced EMT with successful certification testing. 11 people get advanced fire certifications. 1 individual earned his associate's degree. As Lori pointed out, Stacy earned her SHRM, which is Society Human Resource Management Professional. We had 1 person get their certified public manager, and then Josh Earl was awarded the Fire Inspector of the Year through the Fire Inspectors Association, and Brian Hooten, the gentleman that helps him at the reserve, received the State Fire Marshal Award of Merit. Next slide. New apparatus last year. We did put a second medic in service with a new truck, Medic 432. It is stationed at the McCordsville station. And I'm very happy to say that we signed an agreement for the purchase of a Quint/ladder truck, which will be here in June or July of 26. So, next slide, that finishes up. Any questions?
How long in advance do you have to order a ladder truck before you can get it?
This one was 2.25 years. We were just inquiring about other apparatus. Engines right now are a 3-year build.
So it's basically one sewer plant expansion equivalent in time.
I wouldn't know about sewer plant. I would say, yeah.
They're similar.
Yeah. Yes. Any questions? Okay. We'll be back in a few months with our budget presentation. So we wanted to lay this information out to you that we are busy. We're getting busier and trying to keep our head above water.
Thanks, Chief. And
Thank you.
Lori, keep your eyes and ears open. I know the board and Chief are planning certain events during the year celebrating the 5th year anniversary. So appreciate you guys coming in. Thank you. Next, Metropolitan Police Board.
Yeah, so Police Board did meet. Mark Walker was reelected president, Donna Price was reelected vice president, and Claude Robinson was reelected as secretary. They contingently approved a cleaning contract for the new station, and they did approve a new HVAC contract. Officer Trago became CPR certified. Officer Glasgow was transferred to the SRO position, and Officer Watts accepted the sergeant position. We should have 6 new cars. We're shooting for mid to early summer. Just as a staffing update, we do have 2 officers in the academy and 3 that we've offered conditional offers. And then a couple of anniversaries. So Officer Barnes just celebrated 15 years. Officer Case just celebrated 5 years. And importantly, Chief Casey just celebrated 32 years with us.
Thanks. One thing to add to that, the Police Pension Board met this morning and approved Perf 77 for one of the applicants. It was our understanding that one of them, at the last minute, pulled their application. So
Okay.
we only approved one of the 2 recommended for Perf 77 today.
Scott, I
Yes.
was looking at the electric bill over at the new police station. Was it really $5,000 and some dollars?
Yes. And I actually met with Nine Star, and I have a call. They're waiting on a call back from me, but there is we're classified as a commercial office structure, so just the hold alone, without us using any power, is over $2,000 just to hold the power for our building. My call is about, are we classified right? Because this is a brand new building that's barely occupied.
All LED
that has
lighting.
all LED. There's nothing crazy. We're not running any machinery or anything. Why are
know.
we spending over
I looked
$2,000
at
just
that
to
and I'm like, oh.
reserve the power?
So
We had
you-
the same
You said the
thought.
same response.
However, we did compare it with AES, which is this building, and they're pretty similar. That building's just a hair bigger. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of money.
It is, and it is staffed 24/7 too, so.
It is. It just seems like, and there's peak hour rates and off hour rates and different things like that. There's a lot of factors that go into it, but we are looking to see if it is a little bit high.
I was not expecting that.
Neither were we.
All right, Public Works Committee.
Public Works did meet, a very short meeting. We did have 10 bids to resurface a number of roads in the town. A lot of that was based on 500 West. So in the consent agenda, we did select the lowest bid, but all 10 bids were within 20% of each other. Also in the consent agenda, there's a recommendation to purchase a UTV, which was part of our 2025 capital plan. We are using the state bid to purchase that.
Architectural Review Committee.
Architects Review met on January 28th at 5:30 and had a lengthy meeting. We had really three sets of elevations on the agenda to review. MI Homes for Rockport, Dries for Creekside, and Lennar for Alexander Ridge. And unfortunately, we ran into a meeting behind us, the Plan Commission coming in behind, and we hadn't gotten done yet, and they were delayed, and we had to put Lennar off, which we hated to do because they sat there the whole time. But just on like one page per elevation, these are the number of elevations we looked at, and it was time consuming. We had an extensive anti-monotony review with MI Homes, and there's only so many variations you can make on homes, and we did have a number that we found to be meet our anti-monotony standard, can't really be built next to each other. The rest of them we approved, and Ryan has a good list of all those. And then we also approved virtually all of what Dries submitted for Creekside, and Lennar will be, I guess, first up next month.
Okay. Plan Commission.
Yeah, the Planning Commission did meet. It's mainly administrative. We re-elected Devin Settler as the president and Brianne Steckenbecker as the VP. We also reviewed the comprehensive plan and did approve the schedule for 2025 and perform Planning Commission training.
Great. Okay, thank you. And McCordsville did not meet. Consent agenda. At this time, if there's any item that any council member would like to pull off to discuss further, this is the time to do it. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I have nothing to pull off, but do want to move that we approve the consent agenda with the, I guess, comment or caveat that we're missing a few lines on the easement language document in the notary spot, I think, where you actually signed, Greg.
Right.
So when that's available, I would include in the motion, approve the consent agenda with authority for you to sign that when your signature block becomes available per legal.
Sounds good.
Second.
First, second, approve the consent agenda as stated. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, old business, progress report on the community center and town hall projects.
All right, good evening. My name's Audra Blaisdell. I'm with Waypoint Strategies. town. I've been working with you all in a variety of capacities, but I'm here tonight as your owner's representative on both the town hall and the community center. So I'm coming here today to kind of give you a quick overview, hopefully quick overview, of where we are with the projects overall. As a preface for over the next couple months, we'll be coming back for some approvals and some appropriations within the budgets for both of these projects as we get close to putting both of them in construction. So we thought we'd come in today, kind of give an overview, and then we'll be back in probably March and probably May for those approvals. So really quickly, our combined budget that we're aiming for is between 3 and 3.3 million. We will establish a GMP for each of these projects as we go in, and that's what we'll be bringing you to approve for the construction pieces.
And should note, because Greg has a question, our intent is cash on hand through the general fund, which would be the additional appropriation, so.
Really quickly, the team members, MTM Architecture, Charles C. Brandt was the chosen construction manager, and then we anticipate that by the end of this year, both projects will be complete, targeting August and September for here at Town Hall and November, December for the community center over at the Volunteer Fire Department. Oops, I'm wrong. You gave me the mouse and now I can't operate it. Really quickly, kind of walking you through some things that we've done. We've achieved 90% complete on the design of the Town Hall. So specifically talking about Town Hall here, we have done an evaluation of the HVAC system, and we will be making some changes and adjustments to that, and that's why our budget range has been, we took that 3 and we're kind of looking at more 3 to 3.3 to accommodate the HVAC, which Tim has planned for in that budgeting.
And just a reminder, my understanding is when this building was built, they used a residential HVAC system and not more of a commercial industrial.
Absolutely, and they also did heat pumps. So the real brief overview, not to get too deep here, is we are getting pricing to run gas from 600 all the way down here. It'll pay itself back a little longer, than we were anticipating, but it's going to be worth the run for a lot of different reasons. And then we will be replacing all the units. We'll be getting rid of the heat pumps and going to a gas service system. We'll upgrade the size of one and add an additional unit. So
Correct.
quite a few changes.
Yeah, quite a few
But
changes.
still less than going to a commercial unit, actually.
Yes, it will be less than going to a commercial unit, and if you thought the electrical bills were high already, leaving the heat pumps in place and then trying to make these modifications and get this building to function properly with those, the electric bills would have really gone high, which is where we're going to see that ROI is in that flip to natural gas.
Okay.
We obviously made a CM selection bringing Charles C. Branton, and we're working on furniture, fixtures, and equipment for that. We just talked through the HVAC and the connection to natural gas. Some other key scope highlights is that we'll be getting an additional meeting room in here, and we're making that conversion of the former police department area into expansion space for staff. Big next steps, finalizing the finishes as well as the design, getting the construction documents ready and getting out to bid, and then obviously establishing that GMP and coming back here next month. So we have a busy couple weeks ahead of us, coming back here next month to have that GMP approved here at the council meeting. Right after that, we'll start shop drawings and procurement. So when we look at that in kind of linear schedule form, you can see that here. We highlight this GMP in this yellow here, and then you can see the progression of steps where we are doing all of the prep work so that once we start construction, we are full bore and going ahead. So we'll do early procurement, shop drawings, making sure long lead items are secured and timed well into the overall project. And then really quickly, just calling out some of these highlights here. You've got over here, we'll be making modifications in the garages to get to 3 full bay depths for the 3 full depth bays for the for DPW to be able to handle the salt trucks and the larger equipment. That meeting room is up there in the purple, the conversion to some open office space in the blue, and then also ensuring that we're getting some additional storage and work areas located within the building.
What's not shown on here as well is the DPW building adjacent to here has always been plumbed for a restroom, and we're going to install that. So we'll be building a bathroom in the
Correct.
DPW building because we want, as we grow, we want DPW to start using that as their base and then separate them from the sewer plant.
So moving on to the community center, which is the adaptive reuse of the volunteer fire department. This project is at about 50% design plans right now, and we're doing a lot of work on stakeholder engagement relative to some of the memorabilia and the memorial that is already located there, and incorporating that into our exterior design. Key scope items that we like to highlight, we're incorporating the Parks Department into this building, at least for a couple of years they'll be there. We have a meeting space, a large gathering space, outdoor plaza. We'll be making some parking modifications and additions to be able to accommodate this, and we will incorporate some areas where we will display some of the volunteer fire department memorabilia. Key things that are going on and that we're diving into is to get an estimate from our construction manager based on the 50% design. So this is a budget check for us on where we are. We'll start working through detailed design and continue working with the stakeholders. Schedule-wise, we'll be coming in May, so the yellow highlighted here. We'll be coming in May for that same GMP. So we'll do bidding in that April timeframe, be here in May, and then you can see here that's that same level of multi-step. What we'll do early procurement, shop drawings, and all those pieces, so that once we start construction, it's a smooth process and even flow. I stopped these just to make them readable, but it does go out a little bit further. And then this is just some early concepts of what we're thinking about. And some of this is still very much ebbing and flowing. And like I said, we're doing a budget check right now. So it is all preliminary, but this gives you a concept of how we're converting some of those larger garage doors to large storefront windows, keeping that same feel, but modernizing it, making it a larger space. You've got large gathering space here, small meeting room here, catering kitchen, offices, and restrooms. So handling a good number of those community functions.
There's a lot of discussion on the efficiency too, because we want to keep the windows to make it feel like the old fire station, but you're also putting an entire wall of windows up. So
Yes.
making sure that the room doesn't get too hot or cold, and that we have heat loss. So we're definitely looking into what kind of storefront we're going to be using there.
Yeah.
On the catering kitchen, we're going to be having a number of community events in there, I think, where people lease the space for their parties, wedding receptions, whatever. Will we have to meet some sort of commercial restaurant standard for that, and are we planning for it so that we can pass the food inspections as far as the temperature, this, that, and the other, you know?
So we will, we're digging into that a little bit deeper, but we are bringing in commercial grade appliances so that we can, caterers who come in, they would be the ones responsible for meeting health department requirements. We are furnishing them with that equipment. We will be going through this and most likely engage local health department to give us some consult on it.
A lot of it is the space, like
Yep.
you have to have hand washing sinks so many feet from where you cut fresh meat and all that kind of
And
stuff.
Well, and this
it's
is
not-
not a cooking kitchen.
it's not a
There's
cooking
big
kitchen.
difference. There's
Yeah.
no stove, there's. I
Well,
don't-
that's what I'm getting
we
at
have-
is if we're having these events and then people bring stuff in and we don't have the facility that supports it, will there be a problem with the health inspectors?
By labeling it, Tim makes a great point, by labeling it as a warming or catering kitchen only, and by the way the agreement for the lease will be drawn up, those items will be covered.
Yeah, it should be prepared food.
Yes,
You shouldn't be cooking
pre-prepared,
in
yeah. It is not intended to be a cooking or functioning kitchen. It's intended to solely serve as a preliminary back of
We'll have
house.
refrigerators, ice machine, freezer, a warming area, and then some counter space.
Yeah,
Yep.
Outside
I
of
just
that,
don't want to see it built out and then hear that we have to get a special refrigerator because the one we have doesn't pull cold enough temperature or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Nope. That'll all be covered through that lease agreement, or rental agreement, I should say, not even lease, rental. Okay. Any questions I can answer for anybody about where we are right now?
No, it's exciting. I think it's going to be a great, when we get this all accomplished, benefit to the community, both this and then I think be more efficient and accommodate our growth in this building for years. They're both much needed.
Great. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Ryan, I think you're going to cover this, but this is ordinance number 121024B, amending fee schedule for 2025. This is a second reading.
Correct, thank you. Thank you. We originally reviewed this at first reading and held the public hearing in December. At that time, you requested a change to remove CD-ROM from the fee schedule and put in the modern USB stick. So we have made that change. Other than that change, the delay in bringing this back has been more focused on right-of-way fees. We have not made any significant changes to the right-of-way fees as of yet. We're at a point where we would like to go ahead and get this adopted. There are delays in when these fees can become effective, which are included in the ordinance. We will probably be back in the next 30 to 60 days with some more adjustments to right-of-way fees as a new ordinance. As we continue to grow and evolve as a community, we're seeing other utilities and other folks come in and wanting to install infrastructure in large swaths. So for instance, right now, Comcast has applied to come in and put in their infrastructure in all of Colonnade. So we would like to have some time to evaluate whether our current right-of-way fee schedule is most conducive to that style of a right-of-way permit. And so we're not ready to make those changes today, which is why we'd like to get this approved today and get the rest of these fees in effect. But we will likely be back in front of you soon with some more revisions to right-of-way fees. So that's all I've got.
All right. We had a public hearing last meeting, and I know we had no remonstrance, so unless there's more discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 121024B.
Second?
There's been a first and second to approve ordinance number 121024B. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Yep. New business, resolution 021125, a resolution pledging funds to the redevelopment commission for the purchase of property. Tim, you got this?
So at the last redevelopment commission, we had discussed this at the retreat about assisting on some of the property acquisition this year. At the last redevelopment commission, they moved forward with the purchase of the property adjacent to the community center. And after looking at their finances, we're able to allocate another $100,000 from RDC funds towards the property at Depot and Broadway. So we're back, per the direction of the council, requesting the gap to be able to buy that property on Depot and Broadway, which is, I think it's $262,500. Stephanie and I looked at our balances, and we feel that Seed It is the appropriate spot to take this out of. We have about $1.1 million. We had allocated about $700,000, so there's plenty of space there. And then what we'd do, if you approve this, we would have the RDC complete the agreements, and then we come back at the next council meeting with an additional appropriation.
I think we discussed this at our retreat. We were pretty much in agreement on the purchase of property, so unless there's any further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve resolution 021125.
Second.
There has been a first and second to approve resolution 021125, the pledge of funds for property acquisition. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, next up, this is a first reading on a Alexander Ridge 2 annexation ordinance and a public hearing. So we'll do the presentation first, then I'll open up the public hearing, and then we'll ask questions. So, Stu, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of Town Council, good evening. My name is Brian Toohey. My address is 50 South Meridian. Here with me tonight is Taylor Navarre and Chris Miller, both of Lennar Homes of Indiana. Thanks for hearing our brief presentation. I probably need a clicker, don't I? Oh, you've got it. Great.
I got you.
Thank you. Lennar would respectfully ask that the Town Council consider annexing this site of 53 acres, which is on the south side of 900. It's just east of 600. It's right next door to the existing Alexander Ridge neighborhood that's under development now. It's just south of the Somerton residential neighborhood that's being developed by Lennar now. It's west of 500 West and north of State Road 67. It consists of 53 acres. It's outlined in the exhibit that's on the slide now. Could we go to the next slide, please, Ryan? Thank you. As you can see, the site on the west and southwest and on the north is surrounded by the town's boundaries. And we'd respectfully ask that this site be annexed into the town. There's the appropriate contiguity. It certainly looks like it fits in the way the town's growing that way. And that will allow us then, which we filed a petition to rezone it, to just extend the existing Alexander Ridge development. Next slide, please. This is our preliminary concept plan. So the white lots on the left are what is already under development under Alexander Ridge. You can see the entrance off of 900 there on the left side of that exhibit. And we would propose to connect to this new development of about 107 lots, very similar to what's already in at Alexander Ridge. And so it would be an extension of ranch and two-story homes, which we expect to present to the Planning Commission, I think, on February 18th. Next slide, please. That shows an overview of how it would fit in. You can see the connection point to the existing Alexander Ridge down in the southwest. That'd be the left lower-hand corner of that proposed site plan. You can see how it lines up across the street from the Somerton development to the north, and is sort of an extension of residential housing. That's pretty much a summary of our request. We would greatly appreciate your favorable consideration of annexing this into the town of McCordsville. Thank you.
I take it a fiscal plan will be forthcoming,
Yes, sir.
second reading maybe?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
we have to have that, we'll have to pass it before we do the second
Yes, sir.
of the annexation, so we'll have that on our docket. There'll be no action taken tonight. At this time, I'll open up the public hearing. I don't think people from Lennar are going to be here to demonstrate against their development, so, all right, there's nobody here to speak, so the public hearing's been opened and it's now been closed. All right, thank you. We'll see you next month, I
Thank you.
guess, right?
Have a good evening. Thanks for your time.
All right, Assistant Town Manager report.
Our monthly project status report is posted and updated for this month. Happy to answer any questions you may have on it.
106.
We deleted a couple, I think.
We think.
So what's the total number of houses have been approved
For like last year, or,
on that document?
oh, God, I don't even know. I'd have to add them up. If you're asking what's our inventory of zoned lots, we can pull that number for you next month, but I mean, we're thousands into the thousands.
Well, I added the numbers up, it's like 4,500, so just trying to figure out, so these are houses which we build out in the next 5 years,
If there's 4,500 of them, I'd say more like 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah, times 2.5 residents per dwelling on the average, times so many EDUs goes into what are worth.
Yep.
Well, and
Well, as I asked the question, because I was looking at stats from 2024, and it didn't hit me, I was like, why do we approve 514 housing permits but only have 411 sewer taps? Because half our town is in Buck Creek and gets serviced by a different sewer plant.
Yeah, the
So it
south
is a
part,
little
south
bit.
side, different sewer company.
So what's the total number of residents existing now in McCordsville?
Around 12,000.
12,000? Is that,
well,
so we're talking about a 30% increase over the next 10 years that have already been approved, plus whatever comes down the pike.
Yeah, I assume everything here actually gets built, yes. And remember, some of these numbers are based on apartments, so, you know, our multiplier continues to drop. If you go back from 2000 to 2020 census, I think in 2000, our multiplier was like 2.8, and we're down to, I think, 2.6 now. So it's always a bit in flux, you know, everything we're doing is an estimate. But you're looking at a significant percentage of growth, assuming the market doesn't change.
Well, I'm just trying to do the math in my head, but there's 12,000 residents, 2.5, so there's about 5,000 existing houses.
Yeah, we were around 4,000, I want to say was our,
4,200.
yeah,
When we did the garbage contract.
Yep.
Okay, and so with this being 42,
we're doubling,
essentially doubling in the next
10
period
years.
of time.
if they all get built.
They all get built. And in, just a question, in McCord Square, basically there's, what, I guess the parentheses behind it says 670. Is that the anticipated,
Where you at, John?
it's line 50?
Yeah, that 670 represents the approved zoning, number of units approved in the McCord Square zoning. So as of right now, there could never be more than 670 units in McCord Square. Yeah, it's apartments.
So there's 208 now, so that's talking about the existing two
Yeah.
buildings.
Yeah, so you got another 500 left or so, a
So-
little bit less.
400 something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and, you know, this, not go off too much, but this is kind of a point. This SB 1 bill that's going through the House, or the legislature right now, it's could dramatically decrease how property taxes and what we get. I think Tim and I briefly spoke over the, if it would go through, we're looking at about 1.3 million less in revenue coming into the town. Now, that just,
Annually.
yeah, and that's a project, you know, we're still projected to grow, but we're really gonna hurt us on our growth, appeal. And so really, the only way to make up and keep paving roads and paying police officers and firemen and all those things, it's gonna have to, if that goes through and they cap it, it's gonna have to be on the growth side of things.
I sent you all an email today with some recaps and some data that finally came out showing our impacts. They made some significant changes, but to us, if we're talking to our legislators, it's that cap on growth that is going to crush us. Because if they cap us at 4% and we're growing at 16 or 17, which we have been, we lose that gap and we never get it back. So you can max appeal, but they keep talking about changing how the max appeal works as well. So it's imperative to communities like us that are growing at a significant rate of true growth. That's the big difference. It's not market corrections or adjustments. It's true growth, that we're able to capture that true growth. Because if we can't, that's just gonna stymie us into the future.
And the thing is, you know, when you look at we're pretty efficient. When I look at our organization, we're pretty efficient. We have a planning department, we have inspectors, those are much needed when it comes to your growth. We have a parks department now, and we're trying to grow our inventory in parks, and that's an amenity that many people, and when you look at the comprehensive plan, many people, that's what they want to see, right? They want a safe community. We've made an investment in, and I don't want to see Casey and Sergeant Barnes, because they work really hard at our recruitment, and you look, if you guys looked at the numbers the Chief Elder just brought in, I mean, we're seeing more and more runs. I mean, the need for a third station is going to be here before you know it, and staffing that station. So this bill is not, we don't have, I wouldn't say unnecessary, but departments that we're needs-based, not a wants-based. This is a need. Everything we do from our standpoint, from engineering to what we do, utilities and stuff, it's not, I think sometimes that's overlooked. I wish more people would look at towns like us and say, okay, well, they're trying to compare us to Fishers and Carmels that have many, many different departments for different things. And yeah, are there some cities and municipalities that are bloated in their government? Absolutely, but we're not one of them, and we could have a negative impact to us financially. So just FYI, keep your eyes and ears open. Manager's report,
Nothing else?
anything else? Okay, manager's report.
I have nothing this evening.
Okay. I mean, we've spent a lot of time together since, you know, we were just together 11 days ago, so. Town councilor comments, just for people at home and here, it's each council member has 5 minutes to talk about any topic they'd like. They do not have to use it, but we will open that up now. I'll start down here with Dr. Burney tonight. Dr. Burney?
Tonight, I want to bring up something that I brought up first, I think, at the retreat. And we have a great need in parks for land acquisition, and the land is going fast. And we have two people mostly doing the legwork on this, Stan, our parks director, and Tim, our town manager. And for them to spend a lot of time identifying a parcel, and running it through all the various approval processes and committees and discussions that they have to do, and then to go back and find out that it's been under option for 2 months while they were doing this, and you don't know it because the options that developers use on farmland to tie it up until they actually get what they want and want to close and transfer title takes a long time, so it's not in the public record and you don't know about it. So we need to be able to move as fast as or faster than the developers when we identify a parcel. And I'm really wanting us, and I think this would mostly fall on our legal counsel to do, is to put together the organization and the plan and operations that are necessary to have in place so that we can have our 2 lead people, if they agree to take a reasonable amount of money, and I'm suggesting in the range of $10,000 to $15,000, to put down as a down payment or an option payment or whatever is required by contract, that they can tie up a parcel while they jump through all the hoops that are required to actually get it, so that they can kind of move that up front and we can move faster and be faster on our feet. In the long run, I think it'll save us a bunch of money, and it'll prevent us from being stuck with all the stuff that nobody else wants. And we do have a great deficit in parkland. That being said, if everybody else is sort of in agreement, maybe you kind of say what you think about it, and so that we can give some input to town staff here and legal to see if we can get this moving.
Well, thank you, Dr. Burney. Yeah, I think we did direct council and staff to start looking into what that would take, right? at the
Yeah,
retreat?
we just hadn't gotten to it yet, but we'll move it up the list, and I'll meet with Beth this week, and then I talked a little bit to Dennis Otten today, just prior to the meeting, and because a lot of the CDC sits in the redevelopment state code,
Okay.
and so there actually are rules and processes to it. So we just got to involve, setting it up's the easy part. Getting money to them to do things is a little more tricky. So
Is there,
there's EDC involvement and RDC involvement.
Is there a way to have Dennis or even Beth, I guess,
I haven't
make
had
a
a chance to talk to
presentation?
Beth, to be honest. I'd like to talk to Beth first, and
Well, if you guys could put your heads together and you come, maybe make a presentation to the RDC next month and town council,
sure,
if that's doable.
yep, we'll talk about it this week.
All right, if we need to go to April, but, within the next, I think Dr. Burney's point's well taken. It's a good idea, and I'm well open to it. I think we all were at the retreat.
Yep, we just gotta make sure we're doing it properly.
Mr. Jones, you have anything?
Nothing for me,
All
sir.
right. Mr. Gooding?
Nope.
Mr. Price?
Nope.
All right, I have nothing either, so.
I'll move that we approve the vouchers.
Second?
There's been a first and second to approve the vouchers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next meeting will be March 11th, 2025 at 6 PM